Open the gate! Oh, I'll do it. Hold on. There we go.
Hi, I'm some weird 80s video footage. I've been reappropriated here to teach you about Canada, as told in the study materials for the citizenship test. This is the first video in our short series. Think of part 1 like the warm-up. It covers the history before it becomes an official country. Much like my huge muscles here, building this country didn't happen overnight, but I'll show you how it's done. Feel free to read along with your book, or pause to write down names and dates as you go. Or maybe you just want to brush up on some good old Canadian 3rd grade history. That's chill. In other videos, we'll cover Confederation and Canada's part in the World Wars. But for now, let's go way, way back. Although this video starts around the year 1400, we all know that the history of Canada starts way before the first Vikings arrived. In fact, archaeological evidence shows that people have been living on the continent for at least 14,000 years. There are over 50 nations and languages today, but for the study materials, only 4 are mentioned. Is it problematic that so little is mentioned about the long and complex history of our Indigenous and Native peoples? Definitely! Maybe in a future video, I'll teach you more, but you've got a test to study for, so let's keep rolling. And then there was a culture clash, and history was made. 1497, Jean Cabot, an Italian sailor financed by the King of England, stumbles upon Newfoundland.
Signor Cabot! On deck, sir. You won't believe your eyes.
And so, the colonial story of Canada begins.
Over here! You must see this!
Besides discovering an abundance of fish beyond his wildest imagination, Jean Cabot is famous for having drawn the first map to include the land that will one day become Canada. Jacques Cartier makes 3 trips across the Big Drink. He's also the first white guy to sail down the St. Lawrence.
What's he saying, Father?
Commandant Cartier is saying, this nation's name is Canada.
And famously mispronounces the Iroquois word for village.
Canada.
Beg pardon, sir, but the word he used, I think it really means those houses down there.
No, believe me, I know the word. It means nation, and Canada is its name.
And becomes solely responsible for the name of this great nation.
I looked for a proper place for our settlement, but I could find nothing more suitable or better situated than the point of Quebec. I at once employ a part of our workmen to make a site for our settlement.
This fort was the first permanent European settlement in North America and paved the way for many more to join him. And so they did.
It was in this wilderness that Europeans finally found something in Canada to catch their interest.
The Hudson's Bay Company was granted exclusive trading rights to the area.
Beaver hats were all the rage in the capital cities of 17th century Europe. The Canadian animal was thought to produce the very best kind of fur. The pelt of one adult beaver could be traded for a brass kettle or a gallon of brandy.
So believe it or not, it was in fact the glorious beaver.
A rat with good PR.
That is what got us from this to this.
But so much did we love the furry creature that we made it Canada's national emblem. While continuing to hunt it to near extinction.
In the process, a country was born.
Over 100 years after its founding, Quebec City was the center of New France. The French inhabitants numbered around 8,000 and lived modest lives and in relative peaceful harmony with the neighboring Iroquois. However, after the British had claimed Louisbourg, their eyes were set on Quebec City.
My antagonist has wisely set himself up in inaccessible entrenchments, so I can't get at him without spilling a torrent of blood.
English General Wolfe ordered his 500 men in the cover of darkness to climb a treacherous cliff and position themselves on the field of a farmer named Abraham, facing the vulnerable side of the seemingly impenetrable fort of Quebec. Face to face, the French and the English soldiers fired at each other until both Wolfe and Montcalm were fatally shot. In the end, the English were victorious and claimed Quebec City for themselves. The historic battle is responsible for the very fact that this video is in English. So, with the English in charge, the little Frenchies went to school to learn the language and culture of their new rulers. Not all the French Catholics were happy about being ruled by an English Protestant king. They wanted
religious freedoms in Canada.
In 1774, the Quebec Act. It also allowed Frenchmen, or people who were not of English Protestant descent, to run for office. Did it solve all the Québécois' troubles? Well...
Donc en gros, depuis le jour où la France nous a abandonnés sur le champ de bataille, le peuple québécois essaie de conserver sa culture et beaucoup de Canadiens, pas tous évidemment, mais beaucoup, voient ce désir d'affirmation culturelle d'un très mauvais œil. Probablement parce que eux aussi aimeraient ça avoir une culture! Hop! Oh, oh!
Well, religious freedom is something which many of us in Canada take for granted.
But that's okay, because our ability to function as one nation is built on tolerance, and the Quebec Act was an important key to that part of our identity as Canadians. Anyways, let's turn our attention south for a moment. 1776, the colonies to the south planted corn, built settlements, and grew prosperous, and established the 13 colonies. The king across the pond was stoked about all this new wealth he could acquire through taxation of his colonies. Like true Americans, they hated taxes. They also had no interest in sharing the love with a greedy old English king a whole ocean away. So they dumped some tea in the Boston Harbor, did some redecorating, and...
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now.
Meanwhile, here in Canada, tailgate parties weren't the only southern import. From 1792 to 1793, over 3,000 freed black slaves settled in Freetown, Nova Scotia.
Pa should have been here by now. He's 3 hours late already. Pa ain't gonna make it! One of them slave catchers got some must happen. I just know
Liza, you both made it past the border yesterday. We've all done this before.
And American slaves came secretly to Canada and freedom.
Liza!
They called it the Underground Railroad.
Liza! We're free!
It wasn't officially until 1807 that Canada was the first British colony to abolish slavery. Meanwhile, the fur trade, economic opportunity, and immigration spread west, and by the end of the 1700s, we saw the founding of Fort Garry, today Winnipeg, Fort Edmonton, Fort Langley near Vancouver, and Fort Victoria. The first few decades of the 1800s were not exactly chill or peaceful times. Recently established American colonies wanted to increase their reach and power by invading the existing British settlements up north.
We will rise against the British and the Indians and the French.
Yeah? No, not the French.
Not the French. Sorry. Yes, the French.
Final answer.
There could be provinces involved. We will charge!
No. We will do what I said before. We'll just protect the frontier.
The Madison administration was very confident that this, the conquest of Canada would be, as Thomas Jefferson said, a mere matter of marching.
That Canada would almost welcome the United States as a liberator.
Let's give it a shot! Yeah!
British and Canadian historians have been dining out on that quote ever since. There was a misplaced confidence, and in that the Canadians would not fight hard, that Britain would not fight hard to defend this territory.
Raise your sword against Fitzgibbon, Upper Canada will be broken.
Some soldiers occupying the home of Loris Secord were overheard plotting an attack on the British.
Fitzgibbon can't manage more than 50 men.
Pursue the advance 2 days hence.
To warn of the attack, she ran through the night and prevented the Americans from a successful advance. Turns out, we weren't, and still aren't, interested in becoming American.
Take me to Fitzgibbon.
And to prove that point, we even burned down their White House. And no, Loris Secord did not make chocolates, but the company was named in her honor 100 years after her death. So, apart from the threats in the south and the frosty weather, these British settlements were also a bit of a mess on the inside. You'll have to go to the next video to see what I'm talking about. In the next video, we cover the rebellions. We were like Pussy Riot in Top Hat. Which really is as cool as it sounds. Confederation and the birth and baby years of this beautiful country. Click the link over here to see part 2. Thanks again for watching, and good luck on your test!